What's poppin', everybody? Episode 22 of the Slip Away Podcast coming right at you. I'm giving you my Lomachenko and Lopez prediction. Let's get it. Fighting with my microphone stand today. I've been recording music and podcasts and all kinds of shit on here for years, and it seemed like all of a sudden today it's like fucking falling apart on me. I moved one little thing, it's like leaning forward at me, like almost hitting me in the face. I think I've just been inside a little too long. I'm starting to get into fights with like inanimate objects and shit. Losing my fucking mind. But anyways, I've also been trying to work on hanging an aqua bag in my garage. If those of you who don't know what an aqua bag is, let me close this fucking window too, since it's amateur hour today. If you don't know what an aqua bag is, there's a type of heavy bag that's called a wrecking ball, and it's essentially a round circular bag that's designed to be able to work more uppercuts and hooks than straight punches. You know, you can move it around and kind of move your head around it. And so this is basically a wrecking ball bag that's filled with water, and a little lighter on your hands, just because the impact is a little less. It's not like that sand or that filling that's often in heavy bags. So it's just a little easier on your hands, and you can work for longer. And so I'm getting one of those. I have it already, and I've just been having a little trouble finding the right hardware and everything. But once it's hung up, I'm going to start trying to do some more hands-on videos for you guys, be it fight breakdowns on the bag or technique stuff. I'm not entirely sure where I want to go with that, but you know, my background in all this shit is as a gym rat and as a trainer, you know, and I think that could be a cool opportunity for you guys to kind of see how I think the game a little better, and just maybe it makes the fight breakdowns a little clearer, you know, when I can physically show you what I'm talking about. So look for that within the next couple of weeks. I'm going to keep doing, obviously, podcasts and clips up on the YouTube. You know, once I start doing those types of videos, they probably won't be a part of this podcast audio, but they will be on my YouTube channel that's for the podcast. And yeah, definitely check that out. I'm doing clips every week on the YouTube. So if you're in the frame of mind where you don't really feel like listening to the full episode, or you want to hear what I think about a specific topic, check that out. This fight right here this weekend, man, this shit is crazy. This Lomachenko and Lopez fight. I think undoubtedly this is probably the most meaningful fight that's taken place in the coronavirus era. You know, Lomachenko's got three belts right now, I think. I mean, technically, I think he's got two, but he's really got three because of the WBC doing their funky diamond champion. I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but he's got two belts for real. And Lopez won a belt off of Richard Comey in his last fight with a second round knockout. That was a very impressive performance, and it ultimately set up this fight, which, although it took a while to make, was definitely worth it. It was worth the wait. And, you know, I've been watching a lot of like the pre-fights, the pre-fight shows. I think it's called Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And what was really interesting to me was how different their mentalities are and their life situations are. Like Lomachenko is exclusively, at least from you know, the show, he's exclusively around his team. He's got a real tight relationship with his team, real tight relationship with his dad, where, you know, they have this complete trust. If his dad tells him to do it, he does it. And he described it like, you know, my dad and I are like a video game. He's just sitting out there with a joystick, and I'm the guy on the TV that he's controlling. So there's a two minds make a great outcome with them. Whereas with Lopez, his relationship with his pops is It seems like it's a little on the fritz, to be honest. He started crying about it, and it seems like it's a topic that gets him emotional. And to add to that, this is the person that's supposed to train him and prep him for this fight and get him ready for the biggest moment of his life. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than this, to be honest. He's fighting the 1, 2, or 3rd, best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, depending on what list you look at. He's number 2 on my list. So a win over this Lomachenko is the best opportunity of his career. But I have to say, I think that situationally, Lomachenko is at a massive advantage. He just seems much more comfortable. To me, it was almost like unclear who's training Lopez. There's other people in the mix, but his dad's the lead guy, but he's not really close with his dad. I don't entirely understand his situation, but it doesn't seem like any of that would help you to focus in or to be at your best. I'm not saying that's going to decide the outcome of the fight, but it is something to look at. How comfortable is camp? Because inherently a training camp is going to be uncomfortable because you're pushing your body to the very brink 5, 6, 7 times a week, and so you're in that mind frame anyway. So if your team situation is in any way unstable, that's not good for the fighter, particularly a young guy like this. I believe Lopez is 23 years old. They have the same number of pro fights. Loma's 14-1, 11 knockouts, and Lopez is 15-0 with 12 knockouts. So they have similar kind of records, similar professional experience. But obviously, between Lomachenko and Rigondeaux, they have, they're considered the greatest amateurs of all time. He's had 400 amateur fights that he lost 1 fight. So the experience difference here is vast. It's Lomachenko has, even though he only has 15 pro fights, as far as in-ring experience, I don't think it gets any better than what this guy's done. So anyways, let's get into both guys. We'll break them down individually. I'm going to talk about Lomachenko first. He's a southpaw. He's very elusive, and part of that elusiveness is his feet. I know everyone likes to talk about his feet, but they're really worth talking about. The way he pops in and out, the way he changes range every time you throw a punch. And if he's not changing range, he's slipping to the side or he's catching it on the glove and shooting back. So his ability to dictate range with his feet, it's very, very difficult to deal with. It's very difficult to deal with. And on top of that, on the way in, he kind of does these like weird probing punches where he's just sort of touching you to get a range on where you're at. And you could see it while he's training that he's thinking about it in a different kind of way. Like he's got that light board where the light flashes and he's got to touch it. He's got to touch, and they're timing it like how fast his hand-eye is. So he's just staring at this light board like ding, 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 ding. And you could see him doing that in the ring where he's not putting power on everything. He's just giving you the touch, 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 kind of slip to the side, touch, touch. And then eventually he'll rip a hard one. He'll whip it real fast and it'll kind of come out of nowhere. And he has surprisingly good punching power. It's not necessarily devastating one punch power all the time, but he's somebody who can very easily break you down because his skill level and his IQ is so crazy that the accumulation gets to most people over time. And that's why there's a lot of guys that quit when they're in the ring with him. It's a lot to handle, not even physically necessarily. It's just there's so much coming at you that he could just embarrass you and you're not even getting beat up that bad, really. So it's very difficult to deal with. He throws super creative combinations, where he'll throw a couple that, like I said, he'll throw a couple of slow ones, he'll throw a couple fast, soft ones, and then rip a hard one. And he throws combinations of punches you don't see every day. So that it's hard to spar in a way that prepares for that, because how many guys throw like left uppercuts to the body from really far away, but he does it in a way where he's smart and he's not you know what I'm saying? He just does a lot of shit that you wouldn't necessarily get taught to do because you couldn't get away with it, but he can, because he has, a very special understanding of distance and range and timing. And his feet are his main mode of defense, but he'll notice on the way in, he'll sort of flash his gloves at you. Like he'll sort of move his head a little and flash his glove this way, flash this way. and he'll kind of give you, you know, a look, or he'll give you a target to kind of fake you out. And then on top of that, he does this thing where, and you see a lot of Eastern European, Ukrainian guys doing this move, but he'll kind of have his front hand up, and he'll be jabbing on the way in. He'll pop it up, and then he'll drop down, and he'll be jabbing, drop it up and pop down. And what he's doing is he's getting you to look at this jab up here, and then he's dropping down. So he's got you thinking about the body, which is going to open something else up. So even when he's not throwing punches, every single move that this guy makes has a purpose. There's nothing he's doing that has no purpose. Everything has a set purpose. Even if he's just touching you, or he's not touching you, and he's just kind of letting his hands go to get his range right. He's just like, ha ha, boom, boom, flash you here, raise this up, drop down. You know, everything has a purpose. He's trying to open you up, because once he opens you up, he's got you. And, you know, he's a great counterpuncher. And what's really interesting about him, too, is that even though he's this technical, tactical wizard, he's usually on the front foot. He's usually stepping to you and putting you in the position of having to do something to keep him off of you, which is going to open you up. It's going to open you up. And once you open up, that's when you're fucked. Unless you have crazy good timing or speed, it's very difficult to deal with. And the thing for me that I think is the most impressive about him is he's a crippling body puncher. I mean, you could see when he really lets it go to the body and he gets rooted in his stance and he's got like a little bit of wind up on it. You could see that shit hurts, man. And I've seen him drop guys to the body. You know, it's something that he does very, very well is throw body punches. To me, his biggest drawback as a fighter is that he gets hurt. He gets injured a lot. You know, he's had broken hands during the fight. I remember watching a fight early in his career where he broke one of his hands and in like the third, fourth round, and essentially dominated this guy one-handed. This guy from Thailand dominated the fight with one hand. You know, he was saying in the pre-fight show, you know, I broke my hand against Crowler. I fucked my shoulder up against Dust and such. And, you know, these are all fights that he basically dominated. So I think it's entirely possible we haven't even seen everything he can do because he hasn't been healthy. Now he's had these 14 months off. So you'd think that he's done some healing. But I think there's always the potential, particularly with someone as durable as Lopez. I think the best thing that could happen is that Loma gets hurt and in some way his offense is stunted. But to me, that's his biggest drawback, is that he's a little bit injury prone. You know, Lopez, frankly, we don't really know as much about, just because of the difference in competition that they fought. It's hard to know where Lopez is at. But, you know, the eyes don't deceive. You know, I've seen him in with a certain level of opposition, and he's an explosive puncher, both in speed and power. He has that very fast twitch hand speed. He doesn't necessarily throw like big, long combinations, but he's real good about getting off like 2-3 hard ones and kind of, you know, going around or following it up. He's very showboaty. But what, you know, he's very versatile as well. He can kind of box on the front foot or on the back foot. You know, there was a couple of stretches against Diego Magdaleno, where he was really doing a nice job of boxing on the back foot from the Philly shell position, kind of rolling off the shoulder, slipping punches as Magdaleno tried to come in. So he can do some of that. He's got some really nice defensive reflexes. And, you know, he has some very, very fast hands. There's no denying it. You know, he fights pretty well out of that shoulder roll. He does. He fights pretty well out of that shoulder roll. But I also notice that there are times where he sort of turns it off. And he doesn't entirely have his chin tucked into the front shoulder. He's more kind of lax with it. So when someone throws, he has to bring it up as opposed to just sort of rolling with the shot. And he can get hit. I mean, if he's not, to me, I see gaps where he's just a little bit switched off, and against a certain level of competition with his amount of talent, he could get away with that. That's not going to work in this fight. I can guarantee you that's not going to work. He's not going to be able to have breaks like that. It's not happening. And I feel like his feet can be a little bit stuck in the mud sometimes. I'd like to see him a little more nimble, a little more mobile. He's very muscle bound and like tight. And while his hands are really fast, I haven't seen fights where he's had to really use his feet to set something up. I've never seen a fight where he has to cut the ring off or he has to be on the back foot because there's actual danger coming at him. I just haven't seen him do it. I'm not saying he can't do it, but I just haven't seen him do it. And to me, his feet look a little stuck in the mud sometimes. And I was watching him for a little bit, and to me, he's kind of like Andre Berto. And that's a compliment. Andre Berto was a terrific fighter. But he had offensive and defensive limitations because his feet could get a little stuck. He just wasn't as mobile as his hand speed and his athleticism might suggest. And Lopez is just I just haven't seen, in the 3-4 fights of his that I've seen, I just haven't seen him like really up on his toes and looking loose, and it's all very wound up, and it's like he's ready to jump, but there isn't a lot of fluidity to it necessarily. Whereas Lomachenko is like water. He just flows around the ring. He takes what's given to him. I'm saying he's like water. It's really a Bruce Lee thing. Like, he takes the form of the cup he's given, and he's gonna fucking fill that cup up. If Lopez wants to step to him, Loma's got no problem boxing on the back foot, being smart, making him look silly. He also, I'm sure, has no problem getting on that front foot and chasing him down, because I don't know if Lopez is going to be able to stay away from him. When you look at these guys' resumes and who they fought, in this weight neighborhood, Lomachenko's kind of fought the who's who of this weight neighborhood. I just put some names down, but, his second pro fight, he loses to Orlando Salido. That's really a flip a coin kind of fight. Weird, dirty fight. And since then, he's fought Gary Russell, Nicholas Walters, Guillermo Rigondeaux, Jorge Linares, Jose Pedraza, Anthony Crolla, and Luke Campbell. Multiple of those guys you've heard me talk about on this show. Multiple. Linares, Rigondeaux, Gary Russell, Pedraza. I did an episode with Pedraza a couple weeks ago. He's a top contender now at 140 pounds. This fight's taking place at 135. You look at Teofimo, the only fights of his that I've really watched in detail were the Magdalena fight, the Nakatani fight, Masayoshi Nakatani, and the Richard Comey fights, right? So Comey was a titleist. That's sort of his most credible win. But Comey's kind of a limited guy, right? He's a good puncher. He's an okay boxer, but he has some limitations on what he can do. And so it's hard for me to say, like, he didn't have to go find Comey. And Comey didn't have to come find him. They kind of just met in the middle of the ring. One force hit the other, and one force just happened to be younger, stronger, better, faster. So a fight like that does not tell me a lot about him. What it tells me is that if you want to step to him and you don't have top level skills, he's going to walk right through you. Now we're talking about the best technical fighter alive. And when you look at the build-up, the age, the difference in the experience, the level of opposition, the difference in the level of opposition, I got to go with Lomachenko by decision or late round stoppage. Now, you might not want to listen to me because I got those two Charlo fights way fucking wrong a couple of weeks ago. I was off. I said they were both going to lose, and they both won. So I could be full of shit, and, Lopez could have a whole other level I don't know about that we haven't seen. But to be honest with you, I think Lomachenko is going to win. I think he's going to win relatively one-sidedly. I just think that there's a depth to his skill set that Lopez is unprepared for. And I can see it in the way he talks about Lomachenko, that he doesn't really know what he's getting into here. He's talking about he's old. I'm going to make him irrelevant. I'm going to retire him. His father's talking down on him like he's a fraud. He's not a real fighter. This is the hurt game and da-da-da-da, and trying to talk all that like Brooklyn street shit. And that's cool, man, but not everybody's going to be fucking impressed. Not everybody's going to be fucking impressed with that. And this is not a guy that's going to be impressed with that. He's just not. Lomachenko doesn't give a fuck where you're from. Lomachenko doesn't give a fuck what you say. You think he cares what you have to say? Dog, he doesn't give a fuck what you have to say. So there's nothing they can say. And to be honest with you, and his English is not that great. So he's in a literal way not getting, the context and the connotation for what these dudes are talking about. He's literally just like, I like big fight. He doesn't know what the fuck they're saying, and he's not scared. You cannot get in his head. They seem to, to me, they have the appearance of big fish in a small pond, where they just haven't been to this kind of water yet. They just haven't been there. They don't know what it's like to swim in this shit. So, I think that I like his confidence. I like his skills. I like everything about him as a fighter. But there's also a humbleness you have to have, and a respect for your opponent that you have to have, in order to prepare yourself. And I don't see him doing that based on these shows. It seems like he's very big and emotional, and he's leading with his ego. I don't think Lomachenko does that. I think it's a little bit more simple for him, and he doesn't have to talk himself into it. He doesn't have to get in his own head to get jacked up for, you know what I'm saying? He lives in that gear. He lives in that gear of train, eat, sleep, repeat, listen to my dad. It's all very simple to him. He has the right people around him that are looking out for him. There's a trust. And I see Teofimo's situation as very turbulent. It seems like a tricky situation. And that would suck to be dealing with, with family drama in this kind of event. And I hope they come in prepared, and I hope that they're really just trying to sell the fight. And when you take the cameras out of the room, they're like, yo, this is some real shit here. Like, we cannot be off in any way. We cannot be off in any way. I hope that's where they're at privately. So we'll see, man. I think it's going to be a great fight. Really solid undercard. There's a guy named Josue Vargas who has fought in the bubble before. Very excited about him. He's a junior welterweight. It's a great super middleweight named Edgar Berlanga that's going to be fighting before that. Another Brooklyn guy. Every single one of his fights have been first round knockouts. So he's definitely somebody, a local attraction that's, that you should be excited about. He's a super, super talent. It's going to be interesting to see what happens as he continues to step up, but it's obvious that his punching power is lethal. And then Arnold Barboza Jr. against Alex Salcedo at 140. This is a great fight. This is a great fight right here. Like, low-key, I think this has the potential to be a tremendous action fight. I really like Barboza's skills. He's another guy I've talked about. All these guys have fought in the bubble for the most part. Barboza, very well-rounded guy, very aggressive also, but really strong boxing skills. Salcedo, we saw lose to Hooker, Maurice Hooker in a classic. But I think that's going to be a really fun matchup. I think the winner of that fight's probably in line for something a little more meaningful at 140. So definitely check this card out, man. It's very rare that you get a fight of this magnitude for free on TV, particularly right now. There are good fights happening, but a lot of times you got to watch a lot of fluff, or you got to watch a lot of, fun young guys that have potential but are kind of inexperienced. This is just a very high level card, and it's going to be on ESPN. Basketball is ending, baseball is ending, football is going to end sooner than later. This is the time for boxing to fucking step up, man. I think this is our moment a little bit. We're not going to have as much competition as we normally do. So, yeah, that's it, guys. That's episode 22 of the Slip and Weave podcast. Thanks again for tuning in every week. I really appreciate it. Check out the YouTube channel if you get a chance. And I'll have some more content up there soon, whether it be training or fight breakdowns. And yeah, I'll see you next week, guys. Peace.